Hi everyone, welcome and thanks for joining us today. We're joined today by Karen Harris, who is a founder of Storyboard, who's here to talk to you about her experience on last year's Collective Impact programme, as well as her fundraising journey where she raised over £1.2 million for Storyboard. For those of you that don't know already, Collective Impact is a Virgin Startup programme for purpose-led founders looking to raise for the first time. The programme is 8 weeks long. Each week there's a whole day of expert-led workshops. Between workshops, you'll access one-to-ones with our investor in residence. You'll be part of a cohort that'll be full of other purpose-led founders, which is one of the best parts of it, in my opinion. You'll get the chance to practice your pitch to real investors, and it all culminates after the 8 weeks in a live demo day to pitch to a live audience. Applications for our next programme are open, which starts in Jan, and the deadline is the 26th of November. But for today, we're going to be talking to Karen, who was on our programme last year. So thanks so much for joining us, Karen. Would you like to just introduce yourself and Storyboard as a business?
Yeah, sure. Hi, thank you so much for having me. My name's Karen Harris. I've actually built and sold 3 different companies. So Storyboard is the 4th. So I'm a kind of experienced founder, but don't let that put you off, because you can learn so much from the incubator, whether you founded a company or not. So just a little 2 seconds on Storyboard. So effectively, when life happens to you, which it inevitably does to everybody, whether that's your health, grief, something with your relationships, or even at work, you often want to talk to somebody who's going through the same life experience, and that can actually be really difficult to find. It's just one of those things that you can't Google, find someone like me. You can't even go on Chat GPT and say, find someone like me. It's probably the thing that it can't do for you. So what we have is we've built a global platform that's a community platform that makes it really easy to find people going through the same life experience. And often, the internet's full of all these health solutions, but actually the best kept secret is that some of the most effective support and help actually comes from peers. And so what we've developed is this new kind of physical and mental mental health one-to-one support, and we call that Experts by Experience. And we have an academy of platform where we train people to qualify as experts by experience, and then they can monetize their lived experience, and they can run paid for one-to-one sessions on our marketplace. So new gig economy, a lot to come.
I love it. Great. And just to say as well, I know we've got quite a few people tuned in, so if you have any questions for Karen specifically, or myself on the programme, just drop them in the comments and we'll go through them in a little bit. So Karen, I think you kind of touched on this in terms of your experience in business already, but what, with Storyboard, what compelled you to apply for Collective Impact in the first place, given your experience that you've already had?
Yeah, so my previous businesses, I'd never actually raised any money. So
right.
2 of them were kind of organic and grew more slowly. And then one, it was actually private equity brought me in as part of that business. So I didn't build it from scratch. So this was for me learning how to raise. I, even though I had those businesses, I honestly had no clue. And actually, it's kind of different to what you're doing now. It also included a crowdcube element, so crowdfunding, and I was intrigued about how that worked. So I joined it to learn, essentially, and I got way more than I bargained for or I'd even thought about. Once I joined, there was loads more benefits that I hadn't even considered them, to be honest.
Yeah, nice. And as I just said, I think one of those is definitely like being part of a cohort of other founders, which I think there's so many networks out there you can join, but actually being on a program with a cohort can be really valuable. And as Karen says, so the program, it touches on crowdfunding absolutely as a source of fundraising, but we kind of focus the whole program over seeking angel investment, as well as various other investment opportunities, or even the likes of grant funding is touched upon. So it kind of covers the whole funding landscape across the 8 weeks now, as opposed to just focusing on crowdfunding, but that's certainly a part that we talk you through. in terms of your fundraising journey then, Karen, kind of what does that look like? What have you kind of achieved since the program or during the program or even before with your fundraising? And is there anything kind of directly that you can see the program impacted your kind of fundraise?
Yeah, so what was nice is we were raising kind of at the same time. So, you know, I think we'd had maybe like 1 or 2 early stage meetings before the program. And what the program did is it helped me really kind of fine tune the pitch deck. And realize, oh, actually, I need a shorter deck. I need to say less. I need to cut to the quick straight away. And it was just kind of very practical. And there were sessions where experts were brought in, and you know, some of them were kind of for that moment, some were kind of for the future moment. So some were on branding, some were on legal. And actually, you know, at the time, I kind of thought, oh, I don't really need legal, but quite quickly, once you start to get angels saying, okay, great, where's your term sheet? Or, but you know, you do an ASA, and I'm like, yeah, sure, what's an ASA? It's like, quick, phone the lawyer. So even some of the experts that you didn't think you needed, you actually did, and they were just on hand, so you could just call them straight up and say, hold on a minute, what's this? How do I do it? But there's never any pressure to kind of hire anybody. It's just kind of making sure that you understand the infrastructure and all the resources that you might need. So yeah, for me, it was very much about doing it in real time, which I think is the best way of doing it, not doing the course and then waiting and trying. It's like doing it simultaneously and kind of sharpening your pencil as you go, and you sort of get better and better. The lady who ran our program, Susan, she was also incredible. So she would say, send me a deck, and then she would absolutely slaughter it. And it would be like, I'd be like, no, this is not how you do it. And you know, like she was so open that we would be WhatsApping each other at midnight, like literally changing slides and stuff prior to another angel meeting the next morning. So all of that I personally found incredibly helpful. And, you know, did it make a difference? Probably. It wasn't so much that you were kind of giving me the leads. It wasn't that, because it was much more skewed towards the crowd cube and the crowdfunding side. So I was actually getting my own leads, but you learn, get a kind of founding investor. Once you've got that, then you move forward. You know, and you can lean on that, even if it's just a small amount of money. So when people say, have you got anything already? You can say, absolutely, we're already in, and you're not telling any fibs. So it just got better and better and better, and then the money just started to come in. And by the end of it, we did do the crowd cube piece at the end. But in total, we ended up raising 1.2 million at the end. And yeah, so now we're on another raise. I know.
Program's open again, Karen.
Again, so we're trying to raise 2 million now. It's like probably the worst possible time in the history of raising ever, apart from the female founder. You know, there's 2 wars, and interest rates are high. But having said that, we're still doing okay. So just going through it all.
And I think Gunnar, you touched on it there, but what is important to note about, you know, collective impact is we have sessions like how to find and approach angel investors, and I think I'm not sure if that specific session was on the cohort you're in from memory, Karen, but it's kind of teach a person how to fish. You know, we're not going to give you the people that are going to give you the money, but it's how you go and find them yourselves and how you approach them. That's so important for it to be a bit more sustainable. In terms of kind of, you've obviously had amazing success, and it looks like you're about to go on another very successful journey anyway. What kind of tips would you give to founders generally looking to fundraise? Like, what have you learned on your fundraising journey, whether that's from the program or actually just your personal journey with Storyboard?
Yeah, I think, look, there's a few things, and it depends on what stage the business is. We were pre-revenue, we were just a concept actually.
Yeah.
And so I think I'd change my advice depending on what stage you are. But if you are very early and it's concept, then you really need to have your storytelling ability really down, and you have to make people believe that this could be massive. So if it's a business that's kind of same as lots of other things, it might be profitable, it might be okay, and you're very early stage, are people going to bother investing? Probably not. If it's something that has the potential to be incredible and to be the next big thing, you're more likely to land the investment. So the storytelling element is absolutely crucial at that stage. I slightly change my advice if you are already you've got product market fit and you've proven your business model, then maybe there's something a little bit different there. But most of the companies in our cohort were really early stage. And I just want to actually mention again, because I know you've mentioned it, but I haven't said, one of the things that I was really surprised at was how collaborative it was, and like how close we all got in a weird way, because we're very, very different people, and we're still in touch with each other. You know, and we're still supporting each other and really kind of celebrating our successes. So I think that's another really, really important part of the program. You kind of end up being in this your own private group of people who are supporting each other all the time. So that's really good. So yeah, so just in terms of advice, I would say storytelling is really important for early stage, making sure that there is a potential to be like a moonshot style business to pull it in. I'd also say you need to get like a cornerstone investor, and it doesn't need to be a lot of money. It can be small, but once you've got somebody, you can lean on them to also pursue their network. So it's a little bit like a snowball. You get one person, you ask them for 3 other people, and they recommend you. And I think it's a huge difference between an investor recommending you to going in cold with somebody. That's a massive difference. So I think that's really, really important. You can learn those skills. You can learn how to do the ask. So even though they might have given, the ask isn't over. The ask is, great, let's make your money work. How can we leverage to make sure that we get to the next stage? How can you help me? So the ask never stops. You carry on pushing. That would be kind of my very early advice. And also making sure the deck is not more than 10, 11 slides, really short, top line, hard hitting storytelling, and then you then pitch beyond that.
The deck's a huge part of the program as well, as you said. We're suited and tearing it apart, rightly so, to make sure it's right for you. But I think it's something else we've added in as well since your cohort is actually that peer-to-peer pitch practice, because like you say, your cohort like go through the journey with you. They're all learning the same stuff as you, and actually instead of just suiting and tearing it apart, you can tear each other's apart. So we actually have now like a whole session that's just pitch practice to each other, rip it apart, give feedback, iterate, and then you've got a pitch practice with some investors the following week. So can 100% relate to everything you're saying. And you briefly touched on this, but I was going to ask anyway, in terms of the cohort itself, like how is there any examples, or like is there anything you'd say in terms of taking advantage of that relationship? Like how have you been able to support each other, whether that was during the program or after? Do you have any like formal things in place where you stay in touch, or is it just like there for any questions?
So we've got WhatsApp group. Even now, where we stay in touch. There's 2 actually. There's one for Crowdcube for everybody who was successful doing a fundraising, but there's also just our cohort. And Susan's still in it on it, and it's really nice. And often she'll just message and say, "Hey, I'm in London. Who wants to meet up?" So you know, that's really lovely. I mean, some practical things. You know, as part of what we were doing on board at the time, we were making some short videos where people would share their experience, and I just lent on some of the cohort and said, can I film you? And they were like, sure. You know, one of the amazing businesses that was on that cohort, she actually made lingerie for women who had had mastectomies because she'd suffered from breast cancer at a very early age. And literally, we met up at, I think at the demo day, and I filmed her, and she was just incredible. So a few of them did that for me, and I did things for them. So we were just helping each other out, like practically wherever we could. We did do every single time we had an expert come in, and it was online, all of this. You know, Susan would say, right, 30-second pitch, go to each person.
Yeah.
You know, got to get my 30 seconds. But we were drilled on that as well. What's your 30-second elevator?
Yeah, we've carried that through and actually shortened it now to 7 seconds. So if you can't explain it in 7 seconds, then you're out. No, it's great actually, because it means the first day you do it, there is a very big fumble across the group, and then you see it get clearer and clearer every time a speaker comes in. So I do love that concept, to be fair. I don't know if we've got any questions in the comments. I'm just going to have a look. Do drop any questions you have in the comments, if any. Just had another one come through. Are you predominantly focused on mission-driven companies limited by shares, or is there applicability to companies limited by guarantee, or even community interest companies limited by guarantee? Good question. It's not strictly limited by shares. Essentially, what we focus on is your traction, the business model, and essentially your investability, and how ready you are for the program and ready for your raise. That's kind of what we base the selection criteria on for the program. So it's not exclusively for limited companies in that sense. We would have some discretion there. Next question. How does this differ from the crowdfunding support offered via other accelerator programs which don't charge founders to participate? So as I kind of mentioned at the start, this program is not exclusively about crowdfunding. It explores all kind of funding options for your business, including crowdfunding. So we do have a session on that. In terms of how it differs, I think what's one of the biggest parts that, as kind of Karen has said, is so valuable is those one-to-ones and that kind of full rounded support you get throughout the 8 weeks. So there is support available to you to jump on a call and look at your pitch deck. There's one-to-ones at multiple points throughout the process. And you're also part of a cohort of founders that are there to support each other as well. That's the really big thing. Another piece is the demo day, which is always just a really great opportunity for you to kind of combine all the work you've done into that pitch that has been torn apart over the 8 weeks and present it to investors, networks, and various people within kind of the Virgin Startup community that will be there. So yeah, the demo day is a great opportunity for you to bring it all together and then be ready to go on to raise if you haven't already been doing it through the process like Karen did. Question for Karen. Huge thanks for sharing your journey. How did you find the journey to get to concept market fit?
So does that mean pre or post the incubator?
Good question. How did you find the journey to get to concept? I think it's probably more focused around you and your journey with Storyboard than Collective Impact itself.
Okay. So so concept, when we were on the incubator, we had a prototype and that was it. Post raising, obviously we built out the app, and we've been live for about 6 months in both app stores. And yeah, it's been a really, really interesting journey for us because the proposition, helping to find people going through the same life experience, which is kind of baked in, has really resonated. So that's been fantastic. But we've learned from the first cohort of people who've come into the app. We've learned what they wanted to do and what they didn't want to do. And we were iterating very, very fast with the tech in order to make sure that we shifted things around in the app because they really wanted community, and they wanted to create their own communities and build those communities where we actually thought that would be secondary, and actually the video part of what we were doing would be primary. And actually that wasn't true. And what I would say is, the thing about doing anything digital is you just don't know, right? However brilliant you are, and my background, like my domain expertise is marketing, digital, going into technology, unless you have things live in the wild, you just cannot predict what users will do, and you have to really feel it. And so it's always about going very small, very quick, in bite-sized chunks, learning, spending as little as you possibly can to get to that. And then you can get yourself to much more of a product market fit, and then start turning on the marketing tap. So you do learn these kind of things, and you share these things between you within the incubator. So I think it's not just how to raise, it's also how to raise and then get to a successful business.
Yeah, nice. Thanks, Karen. Another question, how much time commitment is needed? So it's 8 weeks long, and it's basically a whole day once a week. So it's every Tuesday. It's pretty much 9 till 4:30 that you'll be on workshops. And then there's time commitments in terms of the one-to-ones outside of that. So for you to actually go and meet up, virtually with other experts on a one-to-one basis, you'll have kind of an hour or so a week, I would say, roughly, where you'll take up time there. We've just had another question pop up. Karen, what was your journey in getting to a position when you could financially get a salary for your entrepreneurship? Do you have to work another job during your startup too? Any tips on how to make that transition? Great question, Lee.
That is a really, really good question. After my raise, I could have taken a salary. I actually didn't, because I wanted to maximize the money, and I was lucky enough that my husband earned enough money where I didn't need to be the earner. I was working from home. I actually just employed interns at the beginning, a couple of interns who obviously I paid them, but intern salary. And I leveraged as many partnerships as I could with people, as many favors as I could with people. And then you just reach a point where you can draw. It'll be different for different people. Some people need to run a side hustle or do it, run their job and run this on the side. If you can obviously manage without a salary and work on it full time, that's definitely the best thing you can do. So I was lucky there.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Sophie has said, thanks for touching on the ideal deck, but can you also touch on the ideal cold email? When is it too much? What main points would you touch on, in which order, to get investors to open up your deck? What have you kind of found with that, Karen?
So I'm not a huge fan, and I don't know if this is controversial to say, so apologies if I'm saying something against what you guys say, but I am not a huge fan of the cold email. I just think that investors get hundreds and thousands of these things. I think you really need to do your research well. So it's all about really understanding which investor puts money where. So have they invested in your area before? Are there competitors that they're already invested in? Because that then makes them interested in you. You have to really understand what the thesis is for every single investor. You can't just blanket these things out. And I know lots of people buy tools on LinkedIn. They get kind of, let me search the term investor and just blanket out all this stuff. I think it's a total waste of time. It's my own personal opinion, so don't necessarily take it as gospel. I think the best way is to network. It's to do content. You're better off writing amazing content about what you're doing and your mission, and networking as many people as possible, and asking for help, asking who within other people's networks, do you know anybody who's investing in this area? If it's like clean energy or whatever it is that you're doing, find the people who are interested in that area and then network that way. That's how I think you should do it.
Yeah, lovely. And just touching on that, and you might have had a similar experience in your cohort, but what we do see sometimes kind of along that same route is throughout those 8 weeks, you are focused on going out in there and finding your initial investors. And actually, you'll stumble across some people that might not be relevant for you, but actually you can intro them to someone else on the cohort. And we've seen that a couple of times where actually the cohort introduce each other to investors because someone's just more relevant than the other and their thesis is like more specific to them. So yeah, love that. Thank you so much for sharing that, Karen. I think we're all good. There's just one last one. New to Virgin Startup, is it an incubator? Do you invest too? So Collective Impact Programme is an accelerator, basically. We do not take any equity, so we don't invest, but the whole programme is around your first raise and giving you the tools to go out and raise investment. So hopefully that answers for you, Lee. I think that's everything, probably just in time, really, Karen. So yeah, thank you so much for your time, and thanks to everyone for joining. I believe we've dropped in the comments the link to applications for the next Collective Impact, so hopefully see some of you apply following this. But massive thanks to Karen, and good luck on the next 2 million then.
Thank you. Don't forget to download Storyboard with an I. So to the App Store.
Absolutely, we will do. Thanks, Karen.
Thanks so much. Take care.
Yeah.
Bye. Bye, everyone.